So I think it's very interesting all the ways that growing up Jehovah's Witness can really warp your thinking, even long after you're out. I know so many people who've been out of the religion for a very long time who are still very much inside mentally. I mean, they still succumb to the thought patterns that were instilled in them while they were Jehovah's Witnesses. And this can be really hard to overcome for people who were only in for a short while. For someone raised in the organization from birth, it can be right now and impossible, as my grandmother would say. Now, I've already talked a good bit about a lot of these thought patterns, and I don't want to be too repetitive and bore you, but we've talked about black and white thinking, about gaslighting, narcissism, manufactured fear and anxiety, and the list goes on. So I've got another one to talk to you about today. I don't think there's actually a word for it, so we might have to make one up. If you think of one, leave it in the comments. So this thing I'm talking about is caring way too much about what other people think, to the detriment of your own mental and sometimes physical health. As a Jehovah's Witness, one of the most important lessons you learn is that appearances are everything. Appearances are more important than you are if you're a kid. And there are a whole lot of layers to this. It's a horrible cliche. Think of it as an onion. So on the outside of the onion is what worldly people, those people that you were witnessing to, think of the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, on this level is one of the most controversial ideas and doctrines that the witnesses have, which is the idea of theocratic warfare. Now, theocratic warfare, as it was taught when I was in, means that the witnesses are allowed to manipulate people and tell kind of half-truths or just omit things and not tell the whole truth, and sometimes tell outright lies in order to bring people into the truth or to control the perceptions of people like law enforcement, social workers, the courts, especially in cases of divorce or where there's an unbelieving mate and a child custody dispute. But it's all about controlling what other people know and think about the Jehovah's Witnesses. So basically, they can lie if they're protecting their religion. And I actually remember this as the subject of talks when I was a kid at the meetings. And I mean, hell, there was even a song about it. I can't remember which songbook it was in. I think it might have been that pink one. I just remember it went something like Theocratic warfare. It was not one of the better ones. In fact, I don't think there were any good ones, actually. So anyway, a prime example of this is the lies that they tell when asked about disfellowshipping, whether or not they shun people, and also about child abuse and pedophilia within the congregation. But both of these things have happened to me personally, and so I know what I'm talking about here. The problem with theocratic warfare is that it's really a slippery slope on a personal level. Once you start telling lies or deliberately leaving things out and manipulating people, you get used to doing that. It can be really, really hard to stop. It can be really hard to find the line. I don't think the human mind is actually capable of compartmentalizing something like that. I mean, to say, well, I can lie about these things over here, but still be completely honest about all this other stuff. It just doesn't work. And theocratic warfare aside, the preoccupation with appearances to those outside the congregation really touches everything. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, there was a factory nearby that made condoms in town. And some of the brothers and sisters in our congregation got jobs there. And these were good jobs with full benefits and stuff. And they were counseled from the platform about appropriate employment for a witness, and they were told they had to quit. I mean, never mind they got benefits and they got paid well and they didn't do anything immoral. They put things in packages. I mean, I guess it didn't matter if you starved to death or your kid died of a preventable illness because you couldn't afford treatment. I mean, it mattered what people thought about a witness working in a condom factory. The horror, as if anybody would actually notice or give a shit if they did. I mean, good grief. I can understand them maybe having a problem with somebody being a stripper. But when you think about it, they'd probably have much more opportunities to witness in that workplace, right? I don't know. Anyway, so we peel off that layer of the onion, and you get to the next level of appearances, and that is within the congregation. So from the peacock walk that is the sisters at a convention trying to attract a spiritual brother, and I know because I was one of them, I used to be one of them, or the vicious gossip and jockeying for position among particularly elders' wives. It's a jungle in there. And whether it's about your financial status or your spirituality or your sexuality, and by the way, spirituality, when I say it in these videos, does not mean what you think it means. It's really about how Jehovah's Witness you are. How much of your life is completely taken over and permeated by their language and their odd rules and all of that. That's your spirituality, not really your relationship with God. But everybody's putting up a front. So if a husband and wife are having marital problems, they will try to hide that from their fellow witnesses. When things really finally go horribly wrong and they may confide in an elder, it may or may not remain confidential. Usually not, to be honest. It's usually part of the gossip mill immediately. And once the gossip mill starts, you find out that your friends tend to distance themselves or disappear entirely because they're afraid of endangering their own status. Now, they'll call it remaining spiritually clean, but it's really about status. So when these people have teenagers that rebel or even dare to be interested in or like something that is not approved, parents come down on them like a ton of bricks because they want so badly to maintain the appearance of this perfect witness family that is manufactured for presentations and interviews at the convention, because that's not real, guys. It's really not. These people want to be so squeaky clean and so square that they can't even sit on the couch for fear that their corners will poke holes in their upholstery. So why are these appearances so important in the congregation? Well, it's because people are watching all the time and they're picking apart your every move. I mean, you will get judged. If you do something that's even the slightest bit out of line, or if there's someone who is jealous of you and wants to get one up on you within the congregation, you're going to get reported and you're going to get counseled and you're going to be made to feel horrible about whatever it is, no matter how minor it is. What you ordered at a restaurant, what you had on that day, who you were talking to, and Jehovah, the almighty imaginary friend, expects you to live up to this impossible 1950s Leave It to Beaver standard. And if you can't do it, and no one can, it's because you are not spiritual enough. You are lukewarm. You are engaging in some kind of secret sin. And if you call them out on something that they've taught that turned out not to be untrue, because there's plenty of failed prophecies there, it's you who ran ahead of Jehovah and misinterpreted their words. Yeah. And then there's the issue of Jehovah's Spirit and these warm fuzzies that you're supposed to get from good old Jah. I never felt it. Not once. And I get that it's never supposed to be the aisle running, Jesus shouting that you see in holiness churches, but it's supposed to be something, isn't it? I mean, personally, I don't think anybody felt it. I think all the studying and field service and Bible reading and wholesome association in the world can't make something out of nothing. It's all just people trying to feel something that they think others are feeling, and when they don't feel it, they try harder, or they try harder to make it appear that they do feel it. It's really ridiculous, and it's really sad. So, okay, peel back that layer of the onion, and let's get personal. Because this preoccupation goes all the way down inside a person, especially if you're a woman. For Jehovah's Witness woman, appearance is it's if not the most important, it is one of the most important qualities that you have. Now, nobody's going to tell you this outright, or really even admit it, but it's true. If you aren't pretty, you'd better be the most perfect and spiritual pioneer in the universe, because your life and your survival depends on getting a man who can support you for the rest of your life, and any kids that you might have. But if you are attractive, and let's face it, all teenage girls are pretty. It's a fact of life. They just are. Look out. because your fellow Jehovah's Witnesses are going to be on you like white on rice in a snowstorm. This is just my experience, but I've seen it play out a couple of times with other people that I knew. So by the age of 12, my mother was convinced that there was something wrong with me because I just wasn't pretty anymore. Now, every kid goes through the middle school awkward stage, right? Every kid does. But my mom kind of took this and just made it into something crazy. I mean, she'd start with my hair and she'd work her way all the way down, pointing out everything that was wrong, everything that looked funny, everything that was out of place. You know, oh, you have hairy legs. Well, she didn't allow me to shave them. It wasn't like I was a particularly hirsute child. Had crooked teeth because I needed braces. My hair was frizzy because, you know, it was the day of the permanent. I bit my nails, and she would say, "You're not sexy. How do you ever think that you're going to find a husband like that?" Now, I was 12, okay? And I mean, obviously, this is not particularly healthy for anyone, much less an adolescent girl who's already had some issues in the past. And I recognize that a lot of this is related to my mother's own mental illness and not necessarily the witnesses, but the witnesses certainly compounded it into something much worse. So then as I got older and grew boobs, things really started to go south. See, according to my mother and really my whole family and my entire congregation growing up, so everyone I knew, if you aren't attractive enough, then you aren't any good. And furthermore, if you aren't a virgin and you aren't married, then you are worthless. Because once you have sex, whether you wanted to or not, you're damaged goods and you just got to take what you can get in life. I mean, you have to live in this very, very slim and subjective margin between virgin and slut. And the tide turns really unpredictably based on the opinions of whoever feels like criticizing at the moment. So, for example, when I was about 14, my mother and I went shopping and I got a new dress. And instead of from the kids department, it was from the ladies department. And it was finally a real departure from these frilly lace collared can dresses that I had been dressed in before. It was a plain black dress. It had long sleeves and kind of a high like mock turtleneck collar. It showed literally no skin. But it was fitted. Knee length, shoulder pads, a few beads around the collar. But I mean, I loved it. I loved it. So I put it on to go to the meeting on a Thursday night when my aunt and my 11-year-old cousin were visiting. And I came down the stairs and my kind of cute but really self-conscious and overweight cousin, who is 11, looks me up and down and she says, "You look like a whore." So my mother freaks out on me, orders me to go upstairs and change, and the next day she returns my new dress to the store over the opinion of a jealous 11-year-old. Someone should probably have questioned why an 11-year-old Jehovah's Witness was using language like that, but I didn't hear any of that. I just heard, "You go upstairs, you whore, and take this dress I bought you off because I'm going to take it back to the store." Bizarre. Okay. But I remember being pulled back in the back room at the Kingdom Hall another time when I was about 15 or 16 and being counseled by this doddering old fool of an elder about wearing too much makeup and how I was a stumbling block for the brothers in the congregation because I came in there looking like Jezebel. Now, let me point out at this juncture that I was not actually wearing any makeup because I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. And so I told him this. I said, "My mom doesn't allow me to wear makeup. I'm not wearing any." And even try, see, my cheeks just get redder because this is what I look like. And he got mad. And then he counseled my mother about my attitude. And you can imagine how that went over. So to recap, I was supposed to be simultaneously sexy and sexless, submissive and compliant, never say no to anything, but never ever say yes to certain things. And if anything bad happened, well, guess whose fault it always was? As a Jehovah's Witness woman, you are always trying to live this illusion, this completely unrealistic image. It's impossible. So there's all these layers of appearances that you have to keep up in every aspect of your life, and none of it is real. There are no real unconditional relationships because everything is based on keeping up those appearances. You have to do it to survive. It's like this unspoken rule that nobody really talks about or acknowledges until you stop doing it. See what I did? I got done. I took that damn onion and just chopped that sucker up. And you know what? The onion still lives. Because guess what happens when I come on YouTube and I don't look like I should? Well, I get all these snide comments about my appearance. You must be a lesbian. Why do you look like a boy? You must have left the truth because you couldn't get a husband. Is this better? Does this make you feel better? Because I love this hat. I crocheted it myself. I leave some of these comments alone and I reply to some of them and I delete some of them. It really depends on the day. But I see the same type of comments on other XJW videos too. Apostate chick comes to mind. Let's face it, that woman is gorgeous. She's so pretty. And I still see the same ignorant jackwagons, and actually it's the exact same ignorant jackwagons commenting on her cleavage or whatever. And these people they're not offended by my hair, and they're not offended by her tits. Okay? That's not what this is about. They are offended by our brains. And I think it's really funny that that's the best these people can do because we don't care anymore. Nobody does. We're busy living our lives. And this is the exact same thing that we used to fear when we were Jehovah's Witnesses. It's what kept us in line. But it doesn't work anymore. So you might as well just scroll on by if that's what you want to do. Because none of us are out here making these videos because we're looking for a boyfriend or because we need or want commentary on our appearance. Otherwise, I wouldn't make videos with no makeup on after jumping on the trampoline with my kids. You're missing the point, guys. We are doing these videos because we are tired of being beaten down and we have something to say. We are doing these videos because we hope that hearing our stories and experiences and perspectives might help somebody else who's going through the same things we did. So if my hair, or lack thereof, is distracting to you, if apostate chick's boobs are distracting you, then plug in your headphones and close your eyes, you goofball.